Everyone, good afternoon for those of us in Europe, and good evening or good morning for those of you in different parts of the world. My name is Tom Dannett. I'm the CEO and the founder of the charity Street Child, and thank you so much for joining us for this incredibly important webinar, studying the situation in Afghanistan and our own response to the events that unfolded in recent weeks. Street Child's mission, our vision, is to see a world where every child is safe in school and learning. And we focus our energies on a place in the world where that's the furthest from being true. Tragically, that provides plenty explanation as to why Afghanistan is a key focus country for Street Child long before the events of this summer. I'm joined by a brilliant panel here this afternoon. And I'm going to introduce them now, and then I'm going to hand over to Ramya, who I'll introduce now, who will really take us through the entire session. I'll start with Ramya. Ramya is our programs lead for all of our work in Asia. She's also the leader for Street Child's work on education, and is a member of our programs leadership team. We also have Ahmed Al-Abawi. Abawi leads our work in Afghanistan. He's joining us from Kabul, and prior to that, he was working for the government in Afghanistan, coordinating the education emergencies response across the country. We were delighted to have him join our team, I guess around about a year ago now. And we're also absolutely delighted to be joined, very honoured to be joined by Madam Saraj, as our guest speaker for this event. As many of you be aware, she was named as one of the 100 most influential people of 2021 by Time magazine. And by way of introduction, I'm going to read the little citation that's on the Time website. There's so many things to admire about Madame Saraj. In 2003, she led a comfortable life in the US to return to her native Afghanistan. There she fought for the rights of women at a time when fewer than 10% of girls were enrolled in elementary school. The founder of the non-profit Afghan Women's Network, she has dedicated herself to championing children's health, battling corruption, and empowering victims of domestic violence. When the Taliban returned to power this August, she headed not to the airport, but to work. She decided to remain in Kabul to test the claims of the new rulers that this time they will not sideline and demean half the population of a country that needs every one of its citizens to realize their potential. Uncompromising clarity may be what I most admire about Madame Saraj. Asked, "Are you okay?" she'll reply, "No, I'm not okay." She says the thing all of us feel, and then she acts. Madame Saraj, it's a great privilege for you to join us. Thank you. And Ramya, I'm now going to pass to you to kick off the session properly. But everyone, thank you so much for joining. It means a lot, and I hope we have a highly informative session. Ram.
Great, thank you very much, Tom. And just to echo your thanks to Madam Saraj, we're absolutely delighted to have you share your insights with us today and really look forward to the conversation we're about to have. I'd also like to kick off by thanking our wonderful colleagues in Afghanistan, because of whom we're able to stay, we're able to serve, and we're able to talk to you about the work that we're continuing to do today. Street Child's operated in Afghanistan for over 25 years. We were active throughout the 1996 to 2001 Taliban regime. We've remained active in areas that have been contested or controlled by the Taliban after the transition in 2001, in spite of years of compounded conflict and crisis. As many of us are aware, on the 15th of August 2021, the government of Afghanistan announced a transfer of control to the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan after an offensive that gained ground after the agreement to exit all the foreign troops from Afghanistan. The exit enabled a sudden seismic capture of control that many of us did not expect or anticipate, and an immediate intensification of security concerns across the country. I'm going to turn to our wonderful colleague, Bawijan, to kick us off. Bawijan, can you tell us a little bit about what the current situation is like in Kabul and across Afghanistan, and what it means for Street Child?
Thank you so much, Ramya, and it's a pleasure to be part of this webinar, speaking to the world regarding the situation in Afghanistan. It's an honor. Well, I would move us back 1 year COVID hit Afghanistan very hard, and it caused its challenges. And then we came to 15th August and what happened after that. So as of now, food and water scarcity, Afghanistan is facing a severe and widespread food crisis with the worst drought in 27 years and a sudden economic collapse that followed the change in government have pushed 22.8 million people into food crisis. The crisis has also spread to urban households that has been part of the middle class. Nearly 6 million urban residents will be facing food crisis over the winter. 10 of 11 urban areas sampled where emergency levels of food insecurity experienced higher household hunger scale. 2/3 of the country in critical or catastrophic situation for water scarcity, high demand for clean water and hygiene. Yes, there is a reduction in conflict displacement and subsequent IDP returns requires more support at place of origin, and key needs are shelter repairs, rental support, winterization assistance, and transitional shelter to avoid formation of camp-like settings and informal settlements. Serious economic and financial shocks, in addition to the impact of the drought, has caused many to lose their livelihoods and jobs and are unable to afford rents for homes or land. And also winter is here and families are struggling to get winter supplies. If we look at the shock towards the education sector specifically, approximately 8 million children, around 3.8 million being girls in Afghanistan, are in need of education in emergencies in 2022. An increase of nearly 200% comparing this to the start of 2021. Just like I said earlier, children's education was already compromised due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But at the moment, due to the socioeconomic collapse, families are now at higher risk of resorting to negative coping mechanisms which deprioritize education, including child labor, early marriage, and other forms of exploitation and abuse. To look at the situation in the ground for the people, banks are paying a limited amount to individuals and organizations. Salaries have not been paid to government employees, including teachers. There is a deterioration in the security, which means increase in criminal activities, but also other threats by other terrorist groups. There is an inflation and there's poverty. Compiling all of this together shows how much the needs have increased during this 1 month period and how the people of Afghanistan are suffering in every areas of their lives. And this is very difficult for us humanitarians to see. However, as Street Child, we need to be focusing on how to mitigate this, how to go around this and make sure that we can serve people. So I will leave it at here and we can discuss our responses later.
Thank you very much, Abawi John. If we just go back to that day that none of us anticipated, we'd observed very closely throughout the first week of August, one capital after another in the provinces fall to the control of the Taliban. And finally, on the 15th of August, we saw that Kabul's control was transferred to the Taliban as well. Madam Saraj, as a woman, what was it like to witness that takeover and the transition to the Taliban? And what were your immediate concerns from that female perspective?
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be amongst all of you. It was, I should say it was really like a nightmare, really. Because honestly, first of all, from what happened afterwards, I was actually expecting a whole lot worse. I thought that there's going to be a complete collapse and they're going to start, people running on the streets with their guns and shooting everybody. That's exactly what I thought was going to happen. But thank God that did not happen. It must have been some kind of a magic that did not happen because Afghanistan was very ready for something like that. And but then, you know, everything from that moment onward, it was just like an unreal scenery, especially Kabul airport. Kabul airport was took a kind of a life of its own, and it was really so unreal to see all of these people running after the planes and trying to get on the planes, and the amount of and the number of people at the airport. I was wondering from where they all came from. It was unbelievable. It was unreal. The whole thing was really a few days of the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. It was until the time when the last plane of the American soldiers left this country. It was an unreal scene. One of the things that I saw the first time when I left my house and I went in my car because I was supposed to go to Serena to see some journalist or something. What I saw was the number of kids on the streets. I saw so many of them, and that's what I made a comment about. And I said, dear God, you know, with what is happening, the number of these street children, it just tripled. It's like so many of them. And there were quite a lot of them all over the place and asking, and that was just the beginning of it. But for some reason, it seemed like almost a real, something that was holding the whole, how shall I say, the canvas of this society by the very weak threads was kind of falling apart. It was just deteriorating, and because of that, I was seeing what I was seeing on the streets. There was a kind of an urgency by these kids and by the people. At the same time, there was an atmosphere and an era of complete being stunned. You know, like they could not believe that actually this is what happened. Yeah. So it was. In my life, it was amongst the saddest days that I will always remember. I don't know what the result of it at the end is going to be, but I don't think, like Tom said, you know, he created this organization, I'm sure, with the thought in his head that there is not going to be any children on the streets without education, without food to eat, without proper clothing. I'm sure he was thinking about that. And so was I. Always in my mind, I was thinking, will it be one day that in Afghanistan, I will see children having a normal life like the rest of the children of the world? But for that, you know, I haven't been able to in the past 20 years, definitely not. And even before that, although they were not as many, but there's quite a lot of them now. And the poverty and what is happening for the lack of jobs, and the women that they are on the street, they are begging now. They're begging with their kids because they don't have food to eat. There is nothing. Everything is falling apart. It really is falling apart very badly. And that is breaking my heart because it's the people of this country that actually are suffering. And they are the ones that they are going to be answering to all of this misery with their own lives and with the lives of their kids, and mostly kids. Kids are the ones that they're going to be suffering the most because they are more vulnerable, they are weaker, they don't have a whole lot of, how shall I say, meat around them to really keep them from the hazards that they are out there, the cold and the lack of, you know, proper food and vitamins or whatever. And they're going to be the victims. We are going to lose a hell of a lot of them. I know that. And of course, with this lack of nutrition and food in Afghanistan, there is a lot of malnutrition amongst the children, and there is lack of medication, and there's no, you know, in the hospitals, the facilities are not really very good right now. So altogether, Afghanistan is like on the verge of such a disaster that I don't think the world has seen anything like it for a long, long time. So unfortunately, that's where we are.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that very honest sharing and reflection. I think as Madam Saraj says, children are absolutely at the center of this crisis. And whilst there are so many complex needs that children have at the moment, and we are often asked as an organization why it is that at this point we need to prioritize education when children have what appear to be much more urgent needs like nutrition, like shelter, for example. But what it's really critical for us to remember and what we really place at the center of our programming is that ensuring children have access to school actually becomes a universal site of provision. We call school is about life-saving, life-sustaining learning in a situation like this. It offers children a safe space to be in at a time when everything else is so uncertain. It allows them to maintain social support networks with their peers, with other responsible adults in that school environment. It actually allows them to access protection services, to access school feeding programs, and to access a whole set of other services that are absolutely critical to their survival at a time like this. As we watched these changes happen in Afghanistan over the month of August, Abawi-Jan, as the street child lead in Afghanistan, what were your immediate concerns? And what were you doing to ensure that we could continue to stay and serve the most vulnerable children and communities at this time?
Thank you, Ramya, for this. First of all, we need to ensure that the progress made in the last 20 years, especially the progress in the education sector, should not be lost. 9 million children should be able to attend schools, and 4 million out-of-school children should be enrolled in schools. The current education system should be sustained and further enriched and strengthened. At the same time, we need to ensure we serve, we stay and deliver to prevent Afghanistan from going into a humanitarian catastrophe. As the lead person in Street Child, I'm very proud to say this, but despite the challenges, Street Child never stopped activities. We ensured to continue our programs throughout this time. We are accepted by the communities we work in due to our community-based approach. We have been able to work in very remote areas where no one had previously implemented education programs, and we continue to do so. We have been able to continue our programs in Taliban-controlled areas before the change in government due to our community-led approach and support from local elders. During the Taliban takeover, we ensured that we stay in close contact with community elders and local authorities to ensure safety of our staff and continuation of our programs. And this includes having our primary aged girls and adolescent girls attending our classes at the moment. To give a brief of the programs that we have, our Education Cannot Wait ECW funded project in Uruzgan. We are currently providing community-based education and accelerated learning programs to 14,750 children, 40% girls, who are actively attending. In our Global Partnership for Education GPE funded project in Zabo, we are providing community-based education and accelerated learning program to 9,000 children, and 35% of them being girls. And then our GPE program in Baghlan, we are providing community-based education and accelerated learning program to 15,000 children, 60% of them being girls. This includes female teachers in these community-based schools and accelerated learning program classes. And our female teachers are able to go and teach. At the same time, to give a brief of what we are doing in these classes, along with the hardcore education and curricula that we are providing to these children, we are providing child protection and case management services to all children. All teachers are trained on providing psychosocial first aid, and also socioeconomic learning components have been integrated into Pashto lessons as well. We are also able to deploy MHPSS counselors in areas of high needs. The project team has also started a novel initiative to seek opinion of children about their classroom experience in a safe and confidential way through Akasi, so as to prevent and act on cases of corporal punishment and bullying. The core focus remains on early grade reading, where all teachers have been taught on how to effectively teach Pashto and Dari in early grades. Moreover, social workers have been trained to become early grade reading coaches who shall provide feedback to teachers for observing their lessons. To further improve their teaching, the social workers could display videos to teachers after feedback sessions as to improve their practices. So we have permission to utilize tablets, which helps us in our digital data collection and also coaching for teachers. And I want to emphasize this, that Street Child has been the only NGO to be allowed to use tablets for digital data collection in remote areas by the Taliban. Our core focus is on foundation literacy and numeracy skills. These are the gateway skills without which no progress can be achieved in any skills. As we work in hard-to-reach areas with teachers, we keep our expectations very specific on early grade reading skills and ensure all-around and consistent support in early grade reading.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that overview, Abawi-Jan. And really just to emphasize here, and again, to call out the absolutely incredible work that our colleagues in country have been doing at a time when their own lives have been thrown into upheaval, at a time where they're incredibly concerned for their own children. I think the burden of a humanitarian is that all children are your children, and it's absolutely imperative that we continue to deliver services and support for them. And our team has been absolutely instrumental in ensuring that for the 40,000 children that we were already working with prior to August, not a single child had to miss a single day of school, and that includes all the girl children who are attending our classrooms. This is something we continue to be very proud of, and really something that we reflect on our agility and ability to do as something that we want to be able to grow, because absolutely we know that the needs are only growing. Madam Saraj, as we look forward, what are you seeing as the key priorities for humanitarian organizations like Street Child who are operating in Afghanistan? And how can we safeguard the gains that have been made, especially for girls, while we go forward in extremely challenging operational conditions?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that to me and to the way I see the whole thing, unfolding in Afghanistan, it is going to be one of the most important challenges that we are going to have, and the Street Child is going to have, of course, in their hands, is to safeguard most of their achievements, because it's going to be over these achievements that we have already achieved during all of these years with the children, especially the girls, that you are able to build whatever you're going to be building in the future. So that is absolutely very, very important. And the best way, really, for me, the way I see it, is to really, which is something that by myself, I'm doing that, is to continue doing the work as we were doing it, before, as much as possible, and not to quit, and keep on going, keep on improving the programs according to demands of this time, whatever they are, because they're a different time. Although and as far as the street children, that might not be very different, but it still is somewhat. And then to kind of adjusting oneself, to the demands of the times right now, what they are, and to really providing the help that they need, and especially that security that you mentioned, Ramya, as far as the classroom is concerned. That is really a safe place for these kids, and they have to be in there, they have to be in that environment. And although we know that the question of food and shelter is important, but at the same time, that classroom can give the shelter that these children they really need, and can be a place for them to come together, and for somebody to actually be able to reach out to them, and for them to be all together in one area, and that area for them to be safe. So I think it's extremely important, and that is something that, if it could be kept alive, and if it could be kept as a program that continues going, it will be extremely beneficial for everybody. Like, for example, right now, with the question of older girls not going to school, that has actually created a huge problem in Afghanistan, as you all know. And these girls, the poor things, they actually lost 2 years before because of COVID. And now the third year, they are losing it this year. So for a lot of these girls, it's like such an important time of their lives, because they are at the time when they are going through the high school, and they want to finish their schooling finish, and they can't do it because of the situation that is around. But hopefully that will get solved, although in the most areas where the which is called the colder parts of Afghanistan, in other words, areas that has winter, the school's time is really coming to an end. So they're going to go for a winter vacation now. It's going to be finished. So I don't know how much longer, how much more time they have to make this work, but I don't think it's really that much time left. So this is going to be the third year that these girls are going to lose. So all of this is going to be for Afghanistan, for the future of Afghanistan, for the future of the children and the people of this country, is going to really put them, at a very disadvantage and kind of pushing them backwards. So, and those are the years that honestly we cannot lose, but unfortunately I think we are going to lose. So that should be the most important thing that Street Chat can do, is to really safeguard whatever has been achieved so far, and to actually build on it for the future and keep on helping these kids as much as possible. That will be something that should be done, actually.
Absolutely. And Madam Saraj, you touched on there the issue that we're facing, where of course we are incredibly thankful that we're able to continue working with primary age girls and that they can continue to access an education. But as we're aware, it isn't yet legal for older girls to be able to attend secondary schools.
Yeah.
As an activist, and in particular as a women's rights activist, what needs to be done? What kind of advocacy, what kind of action can we take as humanitarian organizations to advocate for and realize those opportunities for older girls who are exposed to very specific and extreme risks?
Well, this is a very critical situation, actually, for everybody, because the whole thing, it depends on the amount of money that is kind of at this point is being kept from the Central Bank of Afghanistan, which is actually kept outside the country. And in the countries of the world, they don't want to give that to the hands of the Taliban or return it back to the central bank, because Taliban have not have not kept their words as they promised, that they made the promises that they were going to do, which the girls' education was number one on that one. Human rights was another one. So these things are a bit lacking on the human rights side of it, as well as the education, especially the girls' education. So the world is seeing this as a how shall I say, as a fault and as a shortcoming of the Taliban, and they believe that this is such a fundamental right of the people of Afghanistan, especially of the girls in this country, to have access to education. And if this is not provided by a government, then that government doesn't have any right to have access to the money, because then whatever they're going to be doing, they're going to be doing the right thing. So this is where the whole situation, the way it is almost like being caught between a rock and a hard place, even for the world to decide on that. But at the same time, what is going on by that decision not being carried by the money being released to the Central Bank of Afghanistan, the people of Afghanistan are suffering very much. We are paying the whole thing. I mean, the brunt of this whole thing is going to be coming on us. The men, women, children, the street kids, the old, the young, everybody. I mean, the situation has gotten so bad in this country that now women and people, men are selling their daughters for money. They're selling them so that they could gain some money, some cash in their hands, so they could feed the rest of their family. So this is like, it's one of the most heart-wrenching situations that I have ever come across. That, you know, although I'm not saying that the rights of women in Afghanistan was something so fantastic always, because it hasn't been. But at the same time, now for the girls to be sold because of money for food for the rest of the family, now that is something that's absolutely driving me crazy. So, and everybody for that matter, and the world watching also, I'm sure. But we have to, they have to come up with some kind of a way, something to alleviate this problem and to help the people of Afghanistan. And so far that has been by the humanitarian help that has been so far, you know, Afghanistan has been receiving, and I hope it will receive it from now on also for a while longer. I don't know how long that will be until this whole thing is solved and Afghanistan could actually, you know, become a normal country again with a normal system of government and banking and everything. Because today now in Afghanistan, there is such a shortage of money, for example. You know, the banks are not giving you money. Like if you go and ask and you have money in your account, but they're not going to give it to you. They're just going to give you a certain percentage of it. So because they don't have that kind of money. So that's where it's putting us all in a very, very how shall I say, a very dangerous, very bad place. And some of the projects cannot be carried out at this point because the money of those countries that they had given for the projects in Afghanistan, that's also in the banks, and the banks are not giving the whole lot of it altogether. So that's what it is. And I know that in a way this is putting the whole, how shall I say, the whole responsibility on the shoulder of the world. But unfortunately, it is so, unfortunately, because it is completely out of our hands. We don't know how to do it and what to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Saraj. And I think for us as humanitarian organizations, that's exactly the question that we're trying to answer is what can we do? What can we continue to do? And most critically, what more can we do? We know at the start of this year, the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan was already one of the worst in the world, with so many decades of conflict, crisis, drought, displacement. Almost half the country, which includes approximately 10 million children that Abawi touched on earlier, were already in need of humanitarian aid and assistance. And today, that has intensified so much with shortages of infrastructure services in urban centers, intensified scarcity in rural areas. Madam Saraj, you've touched on so eloquently, I think, the issues with financial institutions freezing assets, being unable to access any cash in country, an enormous cash crisis that's leading to inflation. At the start of the year, more than 30% of the country was facing food insecurities, and now 22.8 million people, which is over half the population, are facing imminent starvation. The winter is about to set in Afghanistan, and shortage of food is being compounded by freezing temperatures that are leaving children without warm clothes, without warm classrooms. And as Afghanistan confronts what could be its greatest humanitarian challenge yet, over decades of compounded catastrophes, there's so much more that we need to do as an organization, as an international community to ramp up our response to these needs. Abawi Jan, could you talk to us a little bit about what Street Child is doing now to respond to that intensification of needs, and how are we scaling and strengthening the existing activities to be able to serve more and more children in need?
Thank you so much, Ramya. And moving towards Madam Saraj, I totally agree. As an Afghan national, I've been living 28 years of my life in war, and I can definitely understand what the country is going through. As Street Child, to respond to the emerging needs, first of all, I'll go to our Untitled Chapter project, which is a very important project for us. We are providing MHPSS and case management support to 4,500 girls and boys who were affected by a bomb blast early this year, and that school was attacked by a bomb blast. More than 100 children lost their lives, and many more were injured. Today, one of the injured girls came to our office. Her mother and her brother came to our office. And it's because she was rejected in 5 hospitals because of the shrapnel stuck in her head and in her chest. So as Street Child, we utilized the funds we had to provide to her family as cash support to take her out to Pakistan for treatment, as the hospitals in Afghanistan were unable to treat her and she could lose her life soon. So this is something that shook me today, and a child who is rejected from 5 hospitals, and what is the reason behind this? A bomb blast. So this is, it was a very difficult scene to see and talk to the family of her. However, moving on to this project, we are providing MHPSS and case management support to these children and their families, to the communities. We're also building a standard resilience building package for these girls. And then this package will be used as a standard package in Afghanistan. Also in Logar, Wardak, Parwan, Kapisa, Panjshir, and Kabo, we're providing IDP families who were displaced due to war with mental health and psychosocial support and case management support, recreational activity support, and to 4,600 individuals, which also includes 1,000 households receiving multi-purpose cash, and this is funded by UNICEF. And our Saidul Shahada project is also funded by UNICEF and Malala Fund. Apart from that, we are working to start our classes. We are working closely with OCHA and Afghanistan Humanitarian Fund to establish community-based education classes and accelerated learning program classes in Bamyan, Daikundi, Baghlan, and Badakhshan to cater to around 7,200 children who are out of school at the moment. However, as Street Child at the moment, looking at the needs which I discussed earlier in my initial talks, food scarcity, water scarcity, and winter itself, we are advocating with different donors for school feeding, winterization kits, wash facilities, food items, and multi-purpose cash for children and their families. These are life-saving support that Afghanistan really needs at the moment. And this is an urgent response that we need to provide. This is what we are planning to do, and we are in the process of providing this response.
Great, thank you so much, Abawi Jan. I'd like to talk to all of you on our call. And again, thank you for turning up today to hear us speak and to hear from our colleagues. I think it's so important that we hear the realities, the very complex realities of what's happening on the ground and attempt to grapple with them. And we also want to be very clear that it's because of supporters like you that we've been able to stay and serve and continue to do the work that we were doing before. But also that has provided us with a platform to be able to scale up our response very quickly and to be able to contend with this enormous intensification of needs over the last couple of months. We're very aware that our work is nowhere near done. We are only going to see things, as Madam Saraj, as Abawi have so poignantly laid out to us. The situation continues to spiral out of control as we face food insecurities, the winter, starvation, ongoing drought, climate crises. There's no end to the challenges that Afghanistan is looking at in the next months and years ahead. And having supporters behind us is so critical at this point, not just to do the work, but to inspire others to support us. As Madam Saraj laid out, it's very complex to think about supporting Afghanistan at the moment because of what's happening in the country and who's in control. But we are very clear that our sights are set on serving children and serving the citizens of Afghanistan. who are the victims of these changing circumstances. And it's absolutely important to us to have the backing from you, our supporters, and for you to go out and inspire others to continue supporting us and other organizations like us to be able to serve children. We'd like to open up to a couple of questions now. And please, we invite you to pop that into the chat box, or if you're feeling brave, do unmute your mic and ask the question directly, and we'll direct it to one of our panelists to come back to you with a response. But just as we wait for some of the questions to come in, I'd like to go back to Madam Saraj to ask, if you could tell our community that's joined us on this call today, one concrete action that you'd like to see from them as an international community to support the citizens of Afghanistan, what would that one thing that they could act on be from your perspective?
Well, it's kind of really, you know, with the way I see the amount and the number of needs of this country at this point, the one thing that I am asking you, please not to do, and don't do it, is to forget Afghanistan. Don't forget us. Because if you close your eyes and you try not to see really what is going on in this country, you're going to be making a situation that is not the fault of the people of this country. Please understand that. We are all victims. We really are. We are victims of big powers. We are victims of our wrong system of government and corruption. But we are victims. So please don't forget us. Whatever you do, try to help us stay alive. And it really has gotten to that point. You know, we are in such a dire need of help and assistance at this point. We don't want to ask you for, you know, a lot of fancy things. No, not really. At this point, what we really need is, as the whole world knows, with the drought, with the winter coming, with the way the whole situation is, whether there's lack of money and the inflation and the hunger, we need food, we need shelter, we need warmth, and we need clothes in our back. We also need education, there is no doubt, absolutely. But mostly we need education, believe it or not, at this point. You know why? Because especially the children, they need education because they are going to be that education is going to be offered to them in a place where they feel safe, or safer than the life that they have outside. So that is the most important thing. So please don't forget us. Right now, we are in a very bad situation. We really are. I'm sure you must be absolutely sick and tired of us, you know, for all of these years that we have asked you to help us. And you're wondering what on earth is happening. You know, this country keeps on taking, and when are they going to stand on their own feet? Believe me, I know that, I understand that. But at the same time, honestly, you know, like some countries of the world, they are not very, very lucky. And Afghanistan happened to be one of those countries. I mean, just look at our neighbors. I mean, that should be enough for you to know where we really are and what they're doing to us as a country. So yeah, so we are, don't forget us, please, and help us in any way you can by assisting us with your generosity and with what you have always done all of these years. I mean, thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Saraj. I think, yeah, it's difficult to follow that, but we'll turn to some of the questions that we have from our supporters. And again, a huge thank you to you for such an honest reflection. Dave, we have a question from you asking about the cost of supplying a child with food and winterization kits at this point in time where, as we mentioned before, winter is setting in and the needs are more and more dire. I'll answer that very quickly. For £30, you can provide a family of 5, that's a mother and 4 children, with warm clothes, with shoes, with socks, with blankets that they need to be able to stay warm and safe. For £40, you'd be able to provide one of our community classrooms with a heater that will see them through the winter, And for £80, you can provide them with both the heater as well as enough wood or fuel to supply them with warmth for the entire duration of the winter. So £30 for a family, £40 for a heater for a classroom, and £80 would actually see a classroom of 30 children and their teacher through the winter that we're facing imminently. We have a question from Richard. And Richard's asking, given the Taliban's seeming indifference to providing meaningful government, is it the case that civil society becomes the responsibility of NGOs? And can we essentially bypass the Taliban in giving the help that is needed? Abawi Jan, you're very familiar with the work that we do on the ground with the Islamic Emirate to gain access to communities, very much in line with humanitarian principles of independence and neutrality. Could you touch a little bit on whether we can safely continue to support and access communities in need in coordination with or bypassing the Taliban, and what your experience of that has been like so far?
Absolutely. This is a very important question. We could never bypass either of the warring parties when we implemented. At one side, it was the government, at one side, it was the Islamic Emirates. And we had to ensure coordination with both sides to first keep our staff safe, and second, ensure that our staff can go and implement in those areas. At the moment, coordination is very important with the new government to ensure access to every part of the country, but also for the safety of our staff. And as Street Child, keeping in mind neutrality, impartiality, but overall the humanitarian principles, which are the guiding principles for us, we coordinate with the local authorities, with the communities, and ensure that everybody is involved in our implementation on the ground.
Thank you very much, Abawi Jan. And for anyone who's interested in hearing a little bit more about how we operate on the ground as humanitarians, please do reach out and we'd be more than happy to engage in an in-depth discussion on that with you. Madam Saraj, could you touch a little bit on, you have, I think, explained this a little bit, but perhaps in a bit more detail. What are the challenges to accessing cash in the country at the moment? So for example, if you need cash for your organization or the work that you're doing, what kind of challenges are you encountering in being able to operate?
Actually, huge challenges. The way things are going. Well, first of all, for quite some time, and that's why we are kind of a backlog. Most of the organizations are that way. Also, we are behind our paying our employees their salary in a month, not more, but a month we are behind. Because by the time the banks opened and by the time the money started to flow, we had to really go deep in our pockets, and whatever we had around, we had to spend. Because especially organization like ours, the ones that they are how shall I say, functioning, and they're on the ground. I have for example, I have a shelter that I'm looking after for the violence victims, family violence of victims of Afghanistan women. So I do look after them also. So for that, I need money continuously, every day, because there are women living in a place, and I have to provide them with food and everything. So the way the banks were doing, or they are still doing after they opened up. Now, for every person that they have money in the bank, they are giving you every day, once a week, 20,000 AFs or $200. That's all they will give you. And until, you have money. But then, of course, the problem is that for a lot of the people in the bank that they had some money, they're running out of that money, because in these few weeks, they have taken their money every week, and they are not being supplied anymore because there is no salaries or anything. So they're running out of money. So that's one thing. For the NGOs and for the businesses, what they have done from their total money that they have in the bank, they are giving a certain percentage, like 5%, for example, or 6%, depending. They're giving it every week. But in that too, because of the fact that we were kind of, behind a month, so it is a game of catching up that we are trying to do. And then there were organizations all over the world that when the whole thing started in Afghanistan very fast, they all went and they gathered money and they gave us and donations. And then those donations were given to us through these people, Saraj, the guys that they are in the free market, that they're staying there and they're getting a certain percentage, and they can give the money as cash to us. So that's how we are getting our money, not through bank, but for the first of the first month or 6 weeks of it, to run our shelter, to run our guest house, which is for the IDPs that we have in Kabul. We had money that way that came to us, and we are spending it and buying the necessities that we really do need. So that's how the banking system works. But then what is also happening is that the banks don't have enough money right now. They are also running out of money because they have to money should be coming to the banks as well, but that's not coming because of the salaries. These companies that used to pay them and all of that is no longer. A whole lot of NGOs are closed now. So that's another problem. So the problems are kind of accumulating one on top of another, and it's just becoming more and more difficult every single day. So that's where we are.
Absolutely. To just very quickly extend on that, very similar to what Madam Saraj has just described, as Street Child, we've been able to find workarounds to start moving money into the country. We have identified safe, sustainable alternative remittance routes and have been able to start channeling funds, which, as we've described throughout this conversation, has allowed us to continue operating, has allowed us to support our teams on the ground as well as our partners. This has been an enormous challenge. There is no suggesting that any of that has been smooth and has required extensive due diligence on our part. But we are pleased that we've been able to identify some of these routes. Having said that, in order to respond at the scale and the scope of response that's required at the moment, we absolutely need functional financial systems. We need financial institutions in Afghanistan to be able to operate at full capacity, given the enormity of needs. But we are doing as much as we can within the current constraints that we're facing as an organization. Again, if any of you on the call would like to talk to us in more detail about the safe and secure mechanisms that we've put in place to transfer funds across, please do get in touch. We'd be more than happy to go through that in great detail with you, and more than happy to be extremely transparent about how we're doing that at this point. Final question that I'm going to direct to our wonderful panelists before I pass back over to Tom. But in light of these situations, and in light of the fact that that situation is both a professional challenge as well as a very intensely personal challenge for you day in and day out, what gives you hope to keep showing up at work every day and doing what you do for others beyond yourselves, beyond your family and your immediate community, but to really think about the country as a whole and to want to respond to that enormity of need? What gives you that hope and that ability to do that? And I'll start with you, please, Madam Saraj.
I think it's a whole lot of love and respect that I have for the people of this country. Really, deep down, that's exactly what it is. I love the people of Afghanistan. I love my people so much, the men and women, the children, everybody. I understand their pride. I understand their weakness. I understand their strength. I understand what a beautiful human. And it's been such a pleasure, really, when I think of it, to be born into this country, to be born an Afghan. And we have such a beautiful, amazing traits as people. We really do. We are generous. We are hospitable. We are kind. We love our family. We actually love our country. We are very, as people, we are not greedy. We don't want, have the whole world and eat it and put it in our stomach. We don't want that. We are kind of, in that sense, we really are. We are good Muslims. although for that, whatever is happening around us, with the different, I'm sure everybody's going to think that, yeah, really are, they look at the group that is, doing things under the name of religion, and look at your government, what they were doing under the name of whatever, and their corruption. It's true that all of that happened also. But as people, we really are pretty amazing people. And I love these people with all of my heart, with all my being. And I am 73 years old. The best part of my life is really behind me. And whatever I have from now on, whatever energy I have, whatever possibility I have, and all of the love I have, I want to give it to these people till the day I die. I want to make it as a gift for them. I want to make it as something that they can take with them, as something that they can live with it, and something that I can make a difference in their lives. That is what I really want to do. And I think I'm going to do that. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. Abawi,
Echoing what Madam Saraj has said, it's the love we have for our people. The job we are doing, for me personally, it gives me the same feeling as worshiping, and serving people really gives you the same feeling as worshiping. But this question of what gives me hope was always a question in my head too, because when I would leave my house, there was a distant chance of anything could happen to me. And I would always think to myself that, why am I still showing up to work? What's motivating me? And the answer came to me 2 weeks ago when our education project manager sent me a picture of children, our girls, in one of our schools in Zabul, and they were smiling. And I had never seen such a smile on a child's face before. And when I looked at that picture gave me hope. And for that smile, I would turn up to work every day to serve these children and make sure that we can be there for them.
thank you so much, both. I've had the incredible privilege of traveling to Afghanistan multiple times to work with our absolutely amazing team there. And every time I've been in the country, I've thought, why is it that these people feel like they're my own? And I feel like if we all felt that way, then the world would be a much more peaceful place. I think as an international community, as fellow humans, we have an incredible responsibility to support Afghanistan at this point. I'd like to thank everyone again who's turned up on this call to support us, to hear our colleagues, to hear their incredible stories of strength and of resilience, but also to hear their calls for support. And thank you very much already for all that you do for us as supporters to allow us to continue serving children. And thank you for what I know you will do going forward. We are immensely grateful to have the opportunity to continue to support children in these challenging times. Thank you again to both of our wonderful panelists, and particularly Madam Saraj. We are so privileged to have you join us today and to hear the very powerful words that you've shared. And of course, Abawi Jan, thank you for turning up every single day and for all that you do together with our team in Afghanistan. I'm going to hand over there to Tom to close us off. Thank you.
Yep. Ramya, Madam Saraj, Abawi, thank you so much for an incredibly moving, incredibly informative session, and in particular for everything in your own ways that you are doing to alleviate the plight of children and families in Afghanistan. There's a lot that will stay with me from this session, but I have to say that the two messages of Madame Saraj, firstly, don't forget us. I'm sure we're all aware that in August, Afghanistan was wall-to-wall media, and actually it's barely a footnote most days at the moment. And we are forgetting, the world is forgetting. And with the looming winter, the banking crisis, everything else we heard about, that is a fearful prospect. And falls on us, to not forget and to act. And the clarity of the second message, help us to stay alive, is there a more simple, important theme than that. So thank you so much for informing us on the situation. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I feel incredibly proud as the person sitting on top of this organization, of the work, Abawi, that you, the hundreds of staff do every day, and incredibly grateful. And we have fantastic partners. And there are so many organizations in Afghanistan, like Madame Saraj's, also doing such powerful work. And I think our pledge will be to do everything we can not to forget, and to encourage others not to forget, and channel as much resources as possible to you this winter and beyond, because every life matters. And if we're going to build a better Afghanistan, support Afghanistan to build itself up, it's going to begin with the children. It's about children getting a future, and it's about safety and learning, and that begins today. So yeah, thank you so much. We've gone slightly over time, but I hope you feel it was worth it. Everyone listening, we're incredibly grateful, and you know where to find us, and please stay in touch. Everyone have a great evening, all the rest of your day. We're done. Thank you.